So, check that out, YouTube. How's it going? Look how fresh this is. Got it last week. Yes. Fresh. That's in mint. What a shirt. Didn't quite like it when I saw it advertised and when I've seen him playing in it, but wow, man, it's fresh as out. Yeah, it's good. Even got the Champions League. Yeah, man, it's fresh. It's looking good. So you've got the Ronaldo on the back. I don't really, not really go for that, but I had a little bit of a feeling the other day. Just sort of comes in waves. I was like, Ronaldo's back at United. It's mad, isn't it? Really, when you think about it, just insane. And I don't think we're so take things for granted so easily as United fans sometimes, and it does sort of wind me. You know, I get wound up with myself in terms of the expectation, but Ronaldo's back at Man United. It's crazy. We should enjoy it more. And some of the performances he's put on, it's like just enjoy it while it's here. Should be like on a high. Shouldn't be all on this doom and gloom. Ronaldo, viva Ronaldo. Right, straight into it then. Maguire scores for England. First goal, bang. Just been reading that that now takes him, Maguire, into England's all-time leading goal scorer, which is an impressive stat with seven goals. So more than John Terry, more than Jack Charlton. So yeah, a pretty impressive stat. Was he right for knee sliding his way into celebration with his hands not around his ears? Let's get this straight. Not around his ears or over his ears, but actually fingers in ears. So made a solid point about that. I think, regardless, I think who's he aiming that at? Critics, United fans, both. I don't think it's United fans. I think he's got a lot of respect for the fans. He's just not that type of character. You know, we're so used to having these big characters at United. Even that type of character, to be quite honest, like he's shown that he can put solid performances in, and you know, it's ultimately when you're in the position that he's in, you're gonna get, you know, you're gonna make one mistake when you're at the back. You know, Bruno makes a mistake up there, he doesn't get punished. Maguire makes a mistake, it's usually more often than not a goal. So yeah, he gets some unfair criticism at times, but should he have been knee sliding and putting his fingers in his ears? No. Onto the Roy Keane thing. I watched the clip back again today from Roy Keane, and he said it was embarrassing. I didn't think he went in two-footed on Maguire regarding his comments. I thought he was quite respectful, really. He didn't sort of not respectful, but he sort of gave him an honest critique, an opinion about why shouldn't be doing it. And to be fair, if you listen to the full clip, you know, the other commentators agree. I think was it Jermaine Defoe, the other critic, and he said you're just gonna add fuel to the fire by just, you know, adding to that. Really, ultimately, what you should be doing is just ignoring it and getting on with your football, because now you do something like that, and the next poor performance that you have is bob on right. And this is probably maybe where Roy Keane, you know, I think he could learn a little bit. You know, I watched the overlap with Gary Neville, and Gary Neville was like, on some occasions, you know, you could change your tact a little bit and be a little bit more, you know, use your head to be a little bit more tactical, because Keane's made it really clear, especially in that overlap, that he wants to get back into management again. But unfortunately, like with his temperament and his character, it puts people off, and I can understand that. You know, it rubs people up the wrong way, and it rubs players up the wrong way. You know, they're in their young careers, and Roy Keane sort of gives off too much of his own personality on people sometimes. But more often than not, he's right, and he is a legend of the league, a legend of the club. And he's got, half the time, he's got a valid point to make. And at the minute, his point is that these players aren't putting in the level of performances that are going to protect Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. And some of those players were doing the same to Mourinho before, and possibly some of them were doing the same to to the previous managers before that, Van Gaal and Moyes. But yeah, I'm just going to change this thing around here a little bit. So, So yeah, I think his comments are like I say, valid. It's Roy Keane. You've got to listen to Roy Keane. Sometimes it comes across a little brash, but like Jermaine Defoe put it brilliantly for me. He just said, look, you do that. Next time you have a bad performance, they're gonna pull you out, and twice as hard. He's right. Stop giving in to the media pressure, showing them that by doing this, by sliding on your knees and putting your fingers in your ears, it's clearly even if you're showing a reaction and showing that you're not bothered about it, in a way, you are bothered about it, because what you've done is gone, look, I was listening to what you were saying and I'm not bothered. But even though the fact that you've actually listened shows them some level of weakness. So, you never saw John Terry doing that. And John Terry had his critics at moments in his career, for Chelsea and for England at some stage. Rio did, I'm sure, and you never saw Rio doing that. You don't see a lot of big vocal captains pulling people out and trying to attack them. I mean, you're on a slippery slope. You do that where you sort of have a one-on-one with the media, you're going to lose. So, it's not been the first time that Maguire's been in some sort of controversial saga with the media, obviously with his issues fighting before. Was it in Greece? And he came back from that and thankfully sort of turned his performances around, and he was injured, although it wasn't a controversial issue with him from a behavioural point of view. Obviously he was injured. Is he going to performed in the Euros, fair play. This time around he got injured again, hasn't worked, and now his performances have been affected, and he's been called out because of it. And Keane, obviously I've seen a lot of comments now about, is Keane bullying? Now the thing is with Keane, and I haven't sort of like listed a load of comments that Keane's written down over the last, I don't know, month, 2 months, 6 months, a year. If you did, and it's like anything, like a tweet or anything, in isolation, you could make it look as bad or as good as you wanted to make it look. It depends on the situation and depends on how you translate it. But it's how he delivers it that I think that rubs people up the wrong way. It's how how Roy Keane delivers what he says is the issue to most people, and that's the problem. I think in terms of what he's saying is fine. I think what he's saying is brilliant. I think what he's saying is what we all agree with, and I think that's why he's been so successful as a pundit, because what he's saying is these players aren't performing. These are the reasons why. This isn't good enough from a professional athlete, and when they're making excuses, it's excuses that you'd expect from an amateur footballer or a Sunday league footballer or a non-league footballer, not a Premier League footballer playing for one of the best clubs in the world and certainly one of the best clubs in the country. It's ridiculous, and it is ridiculous, and it is embarrassing from the captain, because what the captain hasn't shown enough of on the pitch for United is that level of like I don't care attitude, and shouting and instructing his players, not shouting at them in terms of if it's sort of constructive criticism, just directing them a little bit. Now, maybe it's not obvious. Maybe he is. Maybe it's just not obvious to us watching, but it doesn't seem like that. Keane was a completely different character. He was quite animated on the pitch, wasn't he? And I think to Keane, if they don't match that kind of level of like intensity, it's an issue for him. But as I say, if you were to write everything down that he'd said in isolation, you could deem him a little bit of a bully, or you could deem him as a little bit of a perfectionist and a professional who's used to attaining certain levels of performance and expects the same sort of levels of performance from the people wearing the shirt that he wore for 15 years or around that time. And that's why people find it hard to understand why he's constantly in that frame of mind. I think more so because even outside the game, he still has that level of kind of fire in his belly where he still gets quite animated and upset, and that's just his personality. Clearly, obviously, it's not a facade. It's not when he steps onto that pitch he's that certain player, and he steps off he's a completely different character. I think like Roy Keane's just that way, and it just transcends and flicks into his actual football as well as off the pitch when he's talking about it. And whereas someone like Graham Souness, and I was quite impressed with him the other day, he's quite a statistician in terms of understanding what people are at in terms of certain stats, goals or assists or percentage of possession, percentage or passing ratio. Like, he does his own work. I was quite impressed with him for that. And to be fair, he was quite diplomatic the other day, I think, after the Man City game. Come up with some really valid points, and so did Micah Richards, to be fair. Really valid points, if anything, in sort of defence of some of the United players and the coach, and which was odd, But yeah, Roy sometimes I think he's a little brash, and I think he's a little unwilling to look at that internally and adapt and change that way about himself, because he feels why should he? I am what I am. This is what I've done. I've had this level of achievement from doing that, and so I know what it takes to win. What he's sometimes got to understand is a cog in a big machine. Other players also playing at different sort of temperaments and levels, and a team of Roy Keane's, as much as it would be very successful, probably won't always be successful. So you need to have a team of different temperaments to sort of combat that. But what we'd do now for a Roy Keane, and I think slightly off a tangent and diverting a little bit, I think that's what kind of everyone's hoping for Scott McTominay, really. Just kind of hoping that he's going to turn into this Roy Keane type player, but clearly he hasn't got that in his temperament. You could see from Roy Keane from a very early age that at his time at like Notts Forest and stuff, that he had it in his game. He was that type of player, and I think watched a bit on him and some of his old coaches saying that obviously because of his stature and his size that he always felt he had to step up and show his physical ability more so than some other players. And obviously with Scott McTominay, naturally a big player, big tall athletic player, he doesn't think aggression and stuff comes natural to his game, and sometimes it does. It's like anything else. Sometimes people need sparks in different ways. Roy Keane didn't need that. Roy Keane, the fact that they were kicking a ball on a football pitch was enough to spark his enthusiasm and passion and aggression for the game. Whereas sometimes some players need a bad tackle or a wrong decision or a goal against you or whatever it may be to get them going. And it's even at the professional level, it seems so. I see why he gets frustrated. I see why he's got frustrated with Maguire, because you wear the armband, the limelight is on you. And Maguire's got to ask himself a question, really, in terms of, does he feel capable of dealing with that pressure? Does he feel capable of dealing with that mantle over his head in regards to that captaincy armband? Because it's a big thing to have. I mean, they were talking on, I think it was the TalkSport the other night about does it matter to have I think it was Goffey and Goldstate. They were talking about does it matter to have a captain's armband in football? Does it really matter? Goffey disagreed that it didn't feel like it mattered, and I see where he was coming from in terms of having a direct impact and a change to the tactics of a game. And I think it depends on the experience of the player and the length of time they've been at that club, length of time they've had in the game, and the experience plus the length of time they've had in that particular club. And a lot of those factors, Maguire doesn't tick. He's not been at United for more than 4 or 5 years. He hasn't. He hasn't got the levels of experience, say maybe in Europe, as some of the previous captains have had. A few years at the Champions League, obviously Europa League. Just making his way over the last few years into the England team. But obviously his time at Leicester, big experience in the league, and winning the league. So, yeah, there's lots of sort of plus points for Maguire, but I think there's a lot of things that he's missing in terms of that, and I think naturally he's not a leader. I don't always buy this sort of like stamp as well that a captain should be the centre half, where he should be the defensive player in the team. And this is where it maybe throws up the argument where, well, does it actually then really matter? Because I was going to say, well, I don't really like it being a forward either. I would prefer it being a defensive player. I just don't always think it needs to be a defensive player. I often think goalkeepers make good captains. Schmeichel was a leader, a massive leader for us. And I just don't always think it needs to be a centre half. It needs to be the most experienced player, ideally. The person who knows a club a little bit more internally in terms of the intimacy of the club and the fans and the structure and what it means. I think that's important. That's hugely important. Does Maguire have that? Other than the things that he reads and the things that he's seen, the things he's grown up with, being in and around football, probably not. Seeing that now, losing every week, and seeing the reaction he's getting from the fans, and having to generate another apology video about why they didn't perform well, rather than just cracking on and going to training and working it out from there. So, yeah, and all those factors sort of point towards the obvious choice being Ronaldo, but for me, Ronaldo, maybe he does want it. I don't know. He's somebody who wouldn't shy away from it. I think Alex Ferguson said that recently. He's somebody who would relish that opportunity, would relish that that responsibility, because he's never been someone who shied away from it. But would it distract Ronaldo from the thing that he's there to do, which is to score goals? I'm not sure. Ultimately, I think Maguire needs to work on that. Is captaincy in football something that you naturally attain? Is it something that you need to be coached? Is it something that you just have? Or, is it something that, I suppose, certain players do it in different ways? If you look at a Gerrard, he's probably led by example rather than leading by voice and instructions and commands, albeit he did voice and instructions and commands. He was somebody who led by example. John Terry probably led a little bit more by instruction, but definitely led again by certain example. But again, probably more vocal and would instruct his team. So yeah, but Maguire's doing neither, is he? At the minute, he's not leading. Neither is he leading by example, or is he leading by his physical presence and his instructions and his his genuine sort of vocal exchanges with his players, and that's a problem, really. Has he got an healthy relationship with Solskjaer? That's obviously key. Your captain needs to be having needs a good relationship with your manager, which coincidentally and ironically was something that Keane eventually didn't have with Ferguson, and to the point where it was soured, wasn't it, towards the end? So yeah, I don't know. It's a bit of an odd one, that, really, in terms of that. But I do think that you need to have a positive relationship with the manager. You need to be the focal point through which the manager's giving those instructions out. And if you're not, and if you don't believe in the instructions, or it's not working, and you're working against the manager, then it's an house of cards, really. It's all going to come down from there. So yeah. Bit odd. Do I think Keane's a bully? Was he right to call out Maguire? I think so. I think in his job, he's a pundit. That's what he gets paid to do. He gets paid to make comments, not personal comments, or derogatory comments, or anything like that, or anything frowned upon. I think ultimately, he's paid to make comments and professional comments, and he made a comment, which I don't think many people disagree with, really. I think from a lot of the feedback I've seen, a lot of people agree with it. I think he was right to do it. I think the only downside at the minute, I think, to the situation at United, and I think it's a slight digress, but it's the issue we've got with Solskjaer at the minute and the management is that it's built these little bridges and these little connections to ex players and all legends of the club, and it's nice hearing their opinion. Obviously, we've got massive respect for every single one of them. That, as I say, we all kind of know who the main ones are. Scholesy, Scholesy, Neville, and Keane, and the sort of main ones that we see on a day-to-day, day-by-day basis. So, that's kind of they're kind of the main ones. And I think, annoyingly, over the years in which these managers have been in place, these players have had such a massive say on these media outlets, like the major ones that we all watch the games on, and BT and Sky and all those kind of ones, and it can't be good. It can't be good when every time they say something, because they're so well respected in the game, it's plastered on YouTube, or it's plastered in the paper, or it's plastered on a news report on a website somewhere. So that's not good. That's not healthy. That's not ideal. And I know this time around they've tried to keep their mouth shut a little bit, and probably just out of a little bit of, a massive lot of loyalty towards Solskjaer. But I know Scholes has got to the point where he's fed up of biting his tongue. Rio, I think, he's come out and said it's time for a change. Keane, he's kind of been a little bit, I suppose, on the fence and it's more aimed at the players, but I think he knows time's come where it's time for a change and time to see what he can do with these players now. I mean, I know he's been very, very vocal about, the attitudes in the players, Shaw and Martial and Pogba and players like that. But these players have since Van Gaal and since Mourinho, they're 2 or 3 years older, matured, had more experience. Some of these players have gone to World Cup finals and won, and European finals. They've got more experience, and it's a good group now, a good squad where a top manager should be taking these players to bigger and better things. And he said it appears that we're going backwards. Is that the players' fault? Is that a personality issue, or is that a coaching problem? It appears to be obviously a bit of a coaching problem, but I think in terms of the old school, the legends, and all that kind of stuff, and Keane in particular, he's a professional pundit. What he said about Maguire was right to say. I think it was said by the other pundits in the room. Was it Ian Wright that was there as well? I can't remember from listening to it earlier on. I know Jermaine Defoe was definitely there, and they were both right. They all said it they all said the same thing, in slightly different ways. And I think the difference being is that when Roy Keane says something, probably the way that he delivers it and what he says is a little bit more sellable than when Jermaine Defoe says it, who said it a little bit more calmly, and articulated it probably a little bit more. Probably a little bit more neutrally, and a bit more constructive, with some caveats to it, I think. Whereas Roy just said that, look, it's embarrassing because he's Man United captain and his performances have been poor. Defoe said the same thing. He scored, great. Shouldn't be doing it because all it shows is they've got under your skin, and the next time you have a bad performance, they're going to be all over you again. So for your own personal sake, as well as anybody else's, Maguire, you shouldn't be doing it because it's only going to affect you, which subsequently is then going to affect Man United and possibly then affect England. The goal itself was typical Maguire goal, wasn't it? Bullet header. But having said that, it was pretty poor defending. Comes in at the back, unmarked, comes in, bang, goal. So, yeah, it's one of them really that if it had been maybe a 20-yard volley from the edge of the box, 25-yard volley, you might be giving him you're letting him off a little bit, but he's put his head on it, which is his strength, from about 6 yards out, 8 yards out, and unmarked. So, regardless of whether he's playing poor or not, I wouldn't even expected him to have knee slided that goal anyway. So, yeah. So that was the sort of crux of what I wanted to say, really. Roy Keane, great guy, great player. And just an honest man, I suppose. And some people don't like honesty. And the trouble is, in the world that he's in, it sells very well. He's really well respected, and that's a problem. But yeah, it's building these stories, which I don't know if Keane's doing that on purpose. It doesn't strike me as someone who at all that would be interested in selling these stories. He doesn't do social media that much. I know he's got an Instagram page that he uses very infrequently. But I think in general, he doesn't seem to be somebody to me who cares too much about saying something to get something out there, to impress a producer, for example, just to get the message out, or any sort of rubbish like that. I don't think he's someone who really cares too much about doing that, to be quite honest. So it surprises me really that that he's so sometimes a little bit fluent with what he says. And I could tell after the Man City game he was biting his tongue to really say some stuff. He said some things about Fred. He said if Fred came in now, I'd be grabbing him by the scruff of the neck and this, that, and the other. And was it Ollie? He said, "Why are you playing Fred?" You take it with jest, and yeah, he probably shouldn't be saying stuff like that, should he really? But for us as fans and stuff watching it, it's great. It's what you want to hear. It's funny. As a neutral, but as a professional pundit, should he be saying those sorts of things? And I'm sure he wants a future in the game. He wants to be managing again, and he wants to be taken very seriously. You can see he cares about that. So, should he be saying that? No, is the honest answer. He shouldn't be saying, he shouldn't be saying that at all, to be honest. But he says some stuff, and I think, like I say, the stupidity of it sometimes with Keane, he comes across as, he's very, he's a quality player, all this stuff. So you can't fathom that he would ever sort of put himself out of line. But what he doesn't realise that he's doing, or maybe he does, I don't know. Maybe he is completely. Maybe he's getting told to say these things, or told to just have a loose lip, because it sells the videos and the highlights and the clips, and it gives something to talk about. And maybe that's what they're doing. But from Keane's point of view, and he's a man who I know wouldn't bow down to the masters at like these television broadcasters, is that we're saying these things, and all it's doing is making the situation worse for the players, for the manager, which is only then going to put more pressure on the players and the manager, and then put pressure on the performances. So him coming out and saying this, that, and the other about whoever, and then it gets slapped all over a newspaper or on YouTube, and it's Roy Keane said this, and his face and the other player's face, if it's Shaw or it's Maguire or it's Pogba or it's somebody else, it's not helpful. It's not helpful to them. I mean, we can say it as fans. We're fans, the player's gonna see this. No, just I'd be lucky if the fella down the street's watching. But but in terms of the players, obviously they're going to see that on their phones when these major channels are putting out, broadcasters are putting out that sort of stuff. When Keane said something, so he must know that, and he's got to realise that. Yeah, you can have an opinion on the game. make a sort of an opinion about the performance, but it goes a little deeper than that sometimes with Keane, and I think he knows that sometimes. And ultimately, was he right with the Maguire situation? Yes, he was. He was right. Could he have worded it slightly better? Maybe. I didn't think he did anything wrong. I thought it was a fair assessment. When you listen to it back, there's nothing wrong with it, and it's been misconstrued. So other things that he said about other players recently, following the Man City games and stuff like that, at times was it a little over the mark? Yeah, slightly maybe. And maybe something to kind of take from it and from him, learn from it maybe a little bit as a pundit. I don't know. It makes it enjoyable watching and entertaining watching because you want to see honesty, and I suppose that's kind of what's making it entertaining. But at the minute, it's not helping the situation, is it? And yes, it was embarrassing. Ultimately, do I think Roy Keane is a bully? And I think Agbonlahor on TalkSport called him a bully. He's not a bully. I don't agree with that. He's not ringing him up and screaming at him down the phone or calling him, digging him out in training every day or whatever. It was embarrassing, and if a grown man doesn't look at that and go, that was embarrassing against a side who had ranked 100 and odd in the world, then there's something wrong. I'm sure he would have looked at that and gone, yeah, it was pretty embarrassing. Should he be called out every time he does a little thing? Probably not, no. And that's kind of where Defoe is on the head, really, where he said, just get on with your football. Stop thinking about other people, what other people saying, equally like Roy Keane saying, definitely what the media is saying, just crack on with your football. Because if you don't and you get too involved with what the media are saying and you're trying to address it and you try and fight it, you're just going to lose. And it's going to be the next time you come down and you're down at the bottom again and you've had a poor performance, you're going to get found out and you're going to get dogged again. So, yeah, ultimately, that is what it is, I'm sure. In terms of the managerial situation, what's going on, I'm not going to talk too much about that because I'm sure there'll be far more chances to talk about it through the week. I'll do one of these every day this week, if can 8:30 or maybe 9 o'clock tomorrow. Got kids football training for my sins, yes. But ultimately, yeah, I want to address the managerial thing or talk about that. I think, is there going to be a change this week? I spoke about it last week. I can't see it. I can't see a change happening this week. It should have happened last week. It didn't happen, and now Solskjaer's back today. So he's obviously got things to work on, and he's got to go into training and be working on them now, and he will be doing tomorrow. So, yeah, I can't see it happening now. There's talk of Zidane every day. It was Brendan Rodgers last week, and somebody and Ten Hag, a few days before that, and other people in between. It ain't happening. I can't see it happening this week. It's just not going to happen. So we've got to crack on. Hopefully the players come back fresh and we crack on to the Watford game on Saturday and we get something out of it and we knuckle down. I can't see him getting this out this week. As I say, he's got Watford. I think he's then got Villarreal midweek next week, which is a massive game. Ultimately, I think personally, and I said this a few weeks ago, I think he loses that game at Watford, and loses that game against Villarreal midweek, and he's out for me. That's ironically his Europa League final all over again, where he loses that game, and we're out of the Champions League. Ronaldo's playing Europa League football, potentially depending on the situation in terms of the group stage, for the first time in his career, I believe, which it'd just be another embarrassing fact for United in this season, and another meme and another reason for the other fans to get on his back. So that is a massive game, Villarreal. I know there's still young boys to play, but we lose to Villarreal, and I'd like to think that Atalanta will be beating young boys which means it pretty much puts us out of the race to qualify. So yeah, that's a massive game, Villarreal, and I think he loses that, he's seriously going to have some pressure on his back. Seriously have some pressure on his back, and I can't see how the board wouldn't sack him after that. And if they don't, then it's well, we'll see. Hopefully, we're not talking about losing, and we're sat here in a week and a half's time, and we're through in the Champions League after beating Villarreal. But we'll see. So yeah, thanks if you've been watching. If you watch it back, then comment and like, subscribe. I'm going to be doing some more every night this week. Hopefully there's some news that coming in about what's happening with some of the players. Some of the, Shaw picked up a bit of a knock, and what's happening to Sancho, the managerial situation as a whole. I'll talk a little bit sort of about that, and just generally talk about what the formation is going to be during the week. So I'll do a bit of a look ahead in terms of what formation he could play. I mean, he's going to go back to a sort of a 4-2-3-1 formation. Personally, I think he needs some width to start, using these players that have got pace. And Rashford's back fit. He's been training. He should be at 100% ready for Watford. Sancho screaming out for a game on the right. So we really need to sort of get on and just kick on and beat Watford on Saturday. Move on to the Villarreal game and win that, and then Chelsea next, I think, away from home. So that'll be a big one, and we win that. You never know. We'll all be singing Ollie in. So, right. Cheers, guys. Catch you in the next one. See you in a bit.